Now on Denver 7 News, from sun to snow. Big changes are on the way on this Weather Action Day. When the snow will arrive and how much to expect.
Travel nurses are making big paychecks right now, but hospitals are accusing the agencies that help place those nurses of price gouging. We're looking into the debate over possible pay caps. And there is a growing push across the country to return stolen works of art. Why so many museums are being held accountable for what they own.
And confusion over Russia's plans with its troops near Ukraine. The Kremlin says they're starting to leave. The U.S. says we need to see it to believe it. And we start off with a live look outside on this Weather Action Day. This beautiful sun and warm weather are moving out, going to be replaced with clouds and cold. Let's begin with Denver 7's Katie LaSalle to tell us about the big changes. Hi, Katie.
Hey, Shannon. Yep, a storm is a-coming. This afternoon, it was mild, partly to mostly cloudy skies. Will stay dry tonight through tomorrow, but the National Weather Service has issued a winter storm watch in effect from Wednesday afternoon through early Thursday morning. All areas shaded in blue from Fort Collins to downtown Denver, south through Monument and Castle Rock. This evening, though, expect partly cloudy skies, 9 o'clock, 41 degrees. Overnight lows will gradually fall to the mid to upper 20s by early tomorrow morning. So a cool, mostly cloudy start to the day. We'll stay dry for the first half. We'll start to see a little mountain snow pick up, but it's mainly going to be tomorrow afternoon. As you can see, this cold front racing into the state. It'll bring widespread snow to the metro area. We'll talk more about snow totals, how much your neighborhood can expect coming up.
A little bit. Thank you, Katie. President Biden making remarks just a few hours ago with new warnings to Russia about invading Ukraine. He says NATO allies stand united and urged Russia to choose diplomacy and stop its military aggression.
If Russia attacks Ukraine, it'll be met with overwhelming international condemnation. The world will not forget that Russia chose needless death and destruction.
Now, the Kremlin claims it's drawing down forces near the Ukrainian border, but the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, told his Russian counterpart today the U.S. needs to see verifiable, credible, and meaningful de-escalation to believe them. U.S. officials say Russia's large-scale military exercises are still going on, with up to 150,000 troops still in place. Well, state lawmakers are discussing changes to a state law that could help more sexual assault victims get justice. Now, right now, consent isn't even mentioned in the Colorado law used to prosecute many of the sexual assault cases. House Bill 1169 would change that. Prosecutors say the current language is dated and confusing.
Jurors struggle to understand those terms, and yet the judge really couldn't turn to them and say, it's about consent.
The bipartisan bill is not expected to face much opposition and likely will be fast-tracked onto the governor's desk. Now, another bill would prohibit people from open carrying near polling places. This is House Bill 1086, called Vote Without Fear Act. It would prohibit people from open carrying within 100 feet of a ballot drop box or a polling center. Now, concealed carry still would be allowed. There would also be an exemption for police officers. And Democrats behind this say this is about stopping voter intimidation.
I would really say it's risky to not run this bill, unfortunately, from what we've seen from behavior from folks here in our own state. We are really looking at this as a safety bill. We are really looking at this as a voter protection bill.
Now, the bill passed its first committee test Monday with a party line vote, and if it does pass ultimately, it would go into effect immediately, and anyone open carrying in polling locations could face a $1,000 fine or even jail time. 9 families of victims in the Sandy Hook school shooting reached a settlement with the gun manufacturer Remington today. Remington made the rifle used in the 2012 mass shooting that killed 26 people in Newtown, Connecticut. Now, a 2005 federal law protects many gun makers from wrongful death lawsuits brought by family members. But attorneys for the Sandy Hook families argued the company was partially responsible because of its marketing strategy. The settlement is worth $73 million.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau there taking drastic action to end the so-called Freedom Convoy protests that have clogged U.S.-Canada border crossings and snarled commerce. He's invoking Canada's Emergencies Act for the very first time. This gives the government broad powers, including the ability to freeze bank accounts linked to protesters. Now, protests over vaccine mandates have been going on near U.S. border crossings and in Canada's capital for weeks now. Now, a sizable group does remain in front of Canada's Parliament.
The CDC says that pregnant women should get the vaccine, and today the agency has new data on how it could also benefit the child. The CDC found that women who received both doses of the vaccine while they were pregnant passed on immunity. Infants in this situation were 61% less likely to be hospitalized with COVID. The agency is still gathering data on moms who were fully vaccinated before getting pregnant.
I wasn't even in a hospital setting. I didn't know if I would believe these people when they tell me what went on, actually. We do see people that die, but not as often as this.
Now, at this point in the pandemic, it is no secret the emotional toll that caring for COVID patients has taken on nurses, and that's been mixed with burnout and staffing shortages. For the last year, the American Hospital Association has pushed the FTC to investigate anti-competitive pricing among travel nurse agencies as a possible cause. The AHA declined an interview, but they did send us a statement saying that travel nurse rates have been inflated beyond competitive pricing levels. Now, the average hourly pay for a full-time nurse in the United States is about $38 an hour. Travel nurse rates are as high as $200 an hour at some hospitals, so it is easy to see why some RNs are choosing to be travel nurses. Now, the American Staffing Association says it all comes down to supply and demand.
We've seen nurses leave the profession because of the mental and physical toll it's taken on them. And so we've seen that supply drop down. We've seen nurses traveling and demanding more money for what they're doing and the harm they're putting themselves in and being away from their family.
Now, there's also extra training and licensing that travel nurses need, along with insurance costs and living expenses, which have been hit hard by inflation. The ASA says that nurses get 75% of what travel nurse agencies charge hospitals. Now, some states have started actually capping travel nurse rates or have proposals to do so. The American Hospital Association doesn't support that. It has no part in state-level government affairs. Experts that we spoke with say that rate caps are not the answer.
It's not only going to dissuade them from working in hospitals, it's going to keep them from working in that state. Right now, there are 2 states that have nurse rate caps, Minnesota and Massachusetts. And we have heard from our members that nurses in those states will simply go work elsewhere.
This effort really is a deflection from in our view, the hospital's unwillingness to really address the issues that exist inside their hospitals. And if we really want nurses and we value nurses, then we need to respect their tenure and their experience and their knowledge and what they bring to our healthcare system.
Now, she says there are policies that have worked to help address the issues that nurses have been facing for so long. California has a ratio law which says a certain number of nurses have to be on the floor with a certain number of patients. National Nurses United says that they have seen nurses return to hospital settings after this was implemented. Scientists are looking at whether this device could be the future of contact tracing instead of using our smartphone, how they hope it could be used in places like nursing homes in the future.
Last but not least, masks are coming off in the final county in the Denver metro, when Boulder County is planning to drop its mandates. We'll have that for you next.